Hello and welcome to my video. I will show you how to check for water ingress without having to buy an expensive damp meter, and what the difference between water ingress and damp actually is, and why, contrary to popular belief, you can't smell damp. So stay right here and we'll expose probably one of the biggest myths in the caravan industry. So let's say that again before anyone clicks off this video. You cannot smell water ingress. Notice I didn't say damp this time, but I'll get to that in a bit. Be sure to stay to the end of the video to find out the whole story. Practically every person I talk to, either about part exchanging their caravan or if I'm looking to buy one off them, says it hasn't got damp because they can't smell any. So I think the first thing to understand is what is the difference between water ingress and damp. A caravan may be damp due to the fact that the environment is damp around it. Living in Cornwall, we are well versed to damp conditions. A damp environment may cause upholstery to smell, mould to appear on the curtains, and in some situations a film of dusty green mould to appear on the wooden surfaces. These things are often confused with what the customer assumes would be present if the caravan has got water ingress, so the absence of them often leads to the assumption that the caravan is dry and has no water ingress. Issues caused by damp can be solved with a good clean and moving the caravan away from the damp environment. Sometimes this can be as easy as moving it away from storage, from under trees or from under a hedge, to a more open place where air can move around the caravan freely. Or if you have the caravan on your drive, you can leave the heating on low. So what is water ingress? Water ingress is when a seal on the outside of the caravan has failed and let water into the construction of the caravan, walls, roof or floor, or some cases all three. The caravan can look and smell completely dry but can be riddled with water ingress. The reason you can't detect it by smell is because the water is trapped in the walls and it is soaked up by the wood that the walls are made of. And this smell is then sealed in by the glue that bonds the paper to the wood, kind of like what you'd get when you're sealing a wall or floor with PVA glue. But with a small amount of knowledge, which I'll go into in a bit, you will be able to spot the telltale signs of water ingress without the need to buy an expensive damp meter. This is an expensive damp meter. It costs around £450. We call it a damp meter, but after what I've just went through, perhaps we should rename it a water ingress detector. But we probably won't because it's a bit of a mouthful. The one we use has a less intrusive detective system than the cheaper versions that leave vampire marks all over your pride and joy, which really annoys me. It scans the walls using this thing, and depending on the resistance or lack of it when water is present, it gives us a reading. A reading of 0 to 20 is fine, 20 to 25 needs to be kept an eye on, and anything higher needs further investigation. But these types of movers have to be used with a certain level of knowledge. I had one instance when a customer was presented with a £3,000 estimate for a repair, which I didn't think sounded quite right, only to discover that Eldest used a metallic wallpaper in the kitchen area that year. So how are you supposed to know if you have water ingress without an expensive meter? Well, we are talking about finding it as it is first occurring so we can stop it. And you just can't do that without a good meter and a few years experience. The cheap meters aren't great, so I wouldn't recommend relying on them. And like I said, they leave those vampire marks everywhere. It makes no difference if it's raining, foggy, or if it's a hot sunny day. Water ingress is water ingress and nothing to do with the environment, so it will either be there or not. Finding the source of the water ingress and stopping it is practically impossible and very hit and miss at best, unless we strip out the damage from the inside so we can see actually where it's coming in from. So unfortunately, by the time you've found the things that I will go into next, the damage may well have been done, but at least you can then do something about it, because it will only get worse. Or if you're looking to buy a caravan and it has some of these things, at least you can walk away from it. So how can you spot water ingress? Well, there are four main things you can look at that will indicate if you have water ingress or not. Number one, discoloration or staining of the wall or ceiling board. In more modern caravans, the glue used to bond the board to the insulation is normally blue in colour, and sometimes this will be washed through the wallboard and be visible. Or you may just see a dark stain. Here we have an instance of discoloration where you can clearly see where the board has changed colour due to the water behind it. Number two, softness. In the worst cases, if the water ingress has been there for a while, it will have damaged the integrity of the panel itself and it will be soft to touch and spongy when pressed. Here we can see that the panel looks okay until we draw the blind down to give it some shadow. We can see that the board is damaged and it is soft to touch. And then when we put the meter on it, the reading is off the scale. But as soon as we put the blind back up, it's very hard to see. Number three, then we have pimpling. This is where fungus spores that were present in the wood at the time of manufacture get access to water and start to grow. I could never work out what these pimples were until I saw an extreme case where the caravan had been left for 5 years and the pimples had grown. I cut away the paper to reveal a large white mushroom. Problem solved. Number four, another place you will find water ingress is under the window rubbers. The rubbers have a bead of sealant between the inside of the rubber and the exterior panel. This can break down or in some cases not bond to the panel surface and it will let water pass. The result is that the wood surround of the window frame becomes wet and depending on how long the water has been getting in will start to discolour and then begin to rot. This is an instance where the water has been getting in for a while and this is what it should look like. You can clearly see the difference. but it won't always be that bad. In this instance, the water has damaged the panel below the wood and around the window, so the panel will have to be replaced. But if it's caught early enough, replacing the window rubber should stop the problem and the wood can be dried out. You can also do the tap test. If you tap the wallboard with your fingernails, a damp panel will sound different to a dry one, as demonstrated here. The damp panel has a deep thuddy sound, whereas the dry part of the panel has a nice ting to it. All these things are proof that water ingress is present, but unfortunately the damage has already been done. And I can't stress this enough. This is why it's so important to have an annual service that includes a water ingress test, so you can catch any issue before it gets bad. Although we do call it a damp test, which doesn't help that much. It is especially important if the caravan is under warranty, because if you miss one service, then the manufacturer does not have to honour any warranty that they give, although they are pretty good and they normally do. But I have had a case where a customer had not had an annual service for a number of years and ended up with a £4,000 bill. The manufacturer quite rightly drew the line at that. So what can you do if you find water ingress? Well, water ingress is largely cosmetic. In bad cases I have seen it affect the integrity of the caravan, but that is pretty extreme. It then depends on the situation. If the caravan is 20 years old and there's a bit of damage to a panel, then I would advise trying to stop the problem, although this is hit and miss as we said, but then don't worry about it too much. It's not worth spending hundreds of pounds on a repair if the caravan isn't worth much more than that in the first place. If the caravan is under warranty, then no problem, the dealer should sort that out. But it's at times when the caravans are worth a significant amount of money and it is out of warranty and water ingress has found that the problems can arise. The main issue with water ingress is the effect it has on the value of the caravan. As dealers, we obviously can't sell a caravan that has got water ingress unless the caravan is cheap enough and the customer has been made aware of it. And I can't say mistakes haven't been made. But when we value a part exchange that has got water ingress, the price can often reflect on any repairs that we will have to do. We normally come to some arrangements with the customer because it doesn't cost us as much to repair as it would for the customer to have it done. I've only had one occasion when the caravan was that bad that I didn't want to carry on with the deal. Water ingress is the main thing we worry about when we price up a part exchange, and one of the things I refer to in my tips for buying a caravan at the show video, which I'll link to at the end. When a caravan is part exchange, then we take on the issue so the customer doesn't have to worry about it. That's one way around it, but there is an obvious cost to this. The other is to have it repaired. So what will water ingress cost to fix? Insurance companies generally won't cover any water ingress problems, but check your policy on that. A general guide is that a smallish repair with a bit of panel changing will be from £500 to £1,000, and then unfortunately it can go up from there. It is often quite hard to give an estimate because we don't really know the extent of the damage until we strip everything out and have a good look. And in some cases, just stripping it out could be a major job, especially if most of the kitchen has to be taken out to get to the panel. Just a quick note here, caravans are prone to water ingress, but in my experience, older motorhomes seem to have a bigger problem with it. An older motorhome is still worth a lot of money, where a caravan is not, and due to their construction it can cost rather a lot more to fix. So if you are looking to buy anything, but especially an older motorhome, buy it from a dealer so you have a warranty, or get a professional water ingress report, and try not to say damp report. The key to avoiding these issues again is to have a regular water ingress check, so that the problems can be picked up quickly and you can sort it out accordingly. The caravan I used at the beginning of this video came as a part exchange. It had soft wallboards, pimpling, discoloration and damage around the windows. The customer was completely unaware that he had any water ingress, and he said, but I couldn't smell anything. I can't stress enough that this is not a good way to assess if you have a problem or not. And hopefully after watching this video you'll be able to spread the word so we can save people time and money on catching water ingress early. So what are the manufacturers doing about this problem? Because after all, it probably makes up a large chunk of their warranty bill. They do work very hard to produce a product that doesn't leak because it is the holy grail of caravan production. As you visit the dealerships or maybe walk around the show, you'll see mentioned of different manufacturing techniques. We have solid, Alitech, smart, bonding, timberless this and that, all with the same claims that they will reduce the likelihood of water ingress. I do have my own views on the different construction methods and how effective they are, because I have seen the results firsthand and I regularly speak to other dealers to get their feedback, because I want to sell something that doesn't leak. But unfortunately there doesn't seem to be such a thing, even in the European market, although on this front they do seem to have a bit of an edge. Without going into the details, I think some of the systems are flawed and will never produce a dry caravan, and some still have chinks in the armour that I believe will be resolved over time. But they've been making caravans for 80 years. How come we've still got this issue in this day and age? And I hate saying day and age, but it is a valid question. I think it's because our expectations in what a caravan should be have changed. It's not a glorified tent anymore. We want the home comforts, and the length of time we use the caravan per year has gone up, so it has to be a caravan for all weather conditions. We want it light enough to tow and cheap enough to buy. The manufacturers have a constant battle to achieve all these things and struggle to produce a product with these modern standards in mind. If we said we didn't mind a caravan weighing 3.5 tonnes and costing £60,000, I'm sure they could produce something that didn't leak, but we just can't say that. As you can probably tell, this is a subject that I have had a great deal to do with over the years, and it's one of the biggest issues our industry has. I've lost count the amount of times I've had this conversation with a customer. Just one thing to say about the caravans that now have composite walls. Water can still get in and do damage. I haven't spoken about the floors too much, but it's still important to have a caravan that has GRP sidewalls tested, because the floors can get damaged, mainly around the toilet, but also around the sides, as we can see here. So to summarise, and I might have said this already, you can't smell water ingress. Check for signs of water ingress on a regular basis. Get a professional test on an annual basis. A caravan with composite walls can still get water ingress and needs a test. And if you have an old caravan with a bit of damp in it, don't worry about it too much. So this is my quick rundown on water ingress. If you have found this video informative, please subscribe and hit the like button and the bell button, and please share it on social media. That'd be great. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.